coming to you from one of the most resourceful, independent, and badass generations of all time. Welcome to the Gen X Brothers Podcast.
All right, so I want to introduce our very first guest on the Gen X Brothers Podcast. I want to welcome Chris Wilson. Welcome to the show, Chris.
Wilson. Who's that? Who's Chris Wilson? We know who he is.
We have been old school friends with Chris since the 90s, and his most memorable thing is playing with the Mistakes, old school punk glam band. How did that go for you?
I mean, honestly, that was the funnest time, the most fun that I've ever had. Just being able to play shows. We did a lot of the old glitter glam shows at Will-O-Wisp and, playing the Roxy and the Whiskey, and got to put out a couple of CDs and go over to Australia for a little tour. So we had our little run. We started out, we just started out as a punk band, hanging out with all the Hollywood guys. And then we actually got invited by Tim from Spiders and Snakes to do one of the glitter glam shows at the Teaser. And as a joke, I said, hey, we should play as the Mistakes and play the show in drag.
Oh yeah.
So we all put makeup on and put on a skirt, and the image just kind of stuck, and we just kind of stayed with it. And we got a better response than we did before. So we figured, screw it, keep the makeup on, hide the ugly faces a little bit more, and then kind of went on from there. So had a pretty good run.
Were you considered punk before that, and then you just kind of went into the glam thing, or?
Yeah, I mean, our songs always kind of had. My songs were a little bit more punk, and I came from the glam scene and loved the glam music, but I was really heavily into like Black Flag and stuff like that growing up. Where Stacy, the singer who was in the Zeros, he was more from that bubblegum, Poison, hanging out with CeCe DeVille kind of thing. So
and he was a big D. Snyder fanatic, right? I remember him.
100%. So our styles kind of combined gave us like that punk edge with, kind of those catchy choruses, and then just made the evolution into, even with more makeup, we still wrote the same style of music, but it just gave us a little bit more of an image.
I thought I saw like a video of you guys a few years back on MTV, or not on MTV, YouTube. this generation's MTV, but wasn't there like an old video you guys did? It was like black and white. I don't know if it was just Toy Stacy, like a different version of Mistakes. I can't remember I just remember it looking really good and thinking, wow, okay, it looks like they're doing something.
We did 2 music videos. We did one for Tomorrow, which was a full video with the whole band out in the backyard when we lived with Stevie Rochelle. And then after I left the band the first time, they did a video for Bored, which was a total punk song that I wrote, but that was pretty much just Toy Stacy in the shed screaming in the camera, black and white, mixed in with some old skateboarding clips, and then it had some live shots from a show we did at the Whiskey, opening up for Total Chaos. So there was a whole big pit going and a crap ton of people there, not to see us, but we took advantage of it for the video footage.
Yeah. Are you and Toy Stacy still good or no?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. I just talked to him the other day.
And so coming from that genre and that era, as we did, what is one of the more memorable situations? Like, as we got into some crazy shit, we got fucking tore down some clubs, broken some shit. What about on your end? Caused some riots?
Yeah, I would have to say what always comes to mind is one of the craziest times was we played a show at the Cobalt Cafe, which was this little shitty punk club, like a coffee house type punk club. And it was, ironically enough, it was like in Chatsworth or some bullshit. And this little punk skinhead showed up and was running his mouth in the front row. And I was, Cisco fueled at the time, and just got tired of it. And I threw my bass at him, and I jumped off the stage and kind of started beating the crap out of the guy and got broken up. And he left. Well, apparently there's a skinhead bar down the street that they just kind of walked around looking for trouble. So he goes back, gets all of his buddies. These skinheads walk in. So we haul out we're trying to get out.
Damn.
We start loading our gear. We walk out the back door, and there's like 5 skinheads out there standing out there, and one of them had a goddamn samurai sword.
Oh shit!
And he sliced one of the guy's tires we were with. Like, we couldn't leave the club, and we told the owner, we're like, bro, you got to call the fucking cops. And he's like, no blood, no cops.
Oh, damn.
So we just waited. They went around the front. We ran out the back, got in our cars and loaded everything up and managed to get out of there, primarily unscathed. But that was one of the more interesting.
I always wanted to play that place. I heard a lot about the Cobalt Cafe. I always wanted to play. I think Will-O-Wisp ended up playing it after I left the band, but it was because it was always packed, right? It was like always, it was mostly skater and punk kids and.
Yeah, because it was all ages, so a lot of kids would go there, and all the kids that were out in the valley that couldn't get to Hollywood because mommy wouldn't let them go over the hill and all that kind of stuff.
It almost sounds like an experience we had at the Rock in I think it was in Reseda when we played, and I was going to cut my chest, and then I guess they freaked out and they cut our sound off, and then the roadies come up on the stage, and I socked one in the face, and then one roadie grabbed me by the neck or whatever, and I swear to God, he dragged me in a headlock from the stage all the way and threw me out the door, like I was on the ground, like this. Ah!
The best part about that show is that our fans started fighting because I guess the house band was their equipment that we were using because, we didn't bring our own equipment. So Tony starts smashing the drum set. And of course, it's not his drum set. So their fans get pissed off at us. So our fans start fighting with them. So there's this big brawl in the audience. And one of the girls started spraying pepper spray through the whole club. So now everybody's choking and fucking, we're like fighting. I'm just trying to get my equipment and get the fuck out of there because my equipment is expensive. and Tony's fighting. The bouncers are fighting.
That was our first gig at the Rock and our last gig at the Rock.
Yeah, I bet. Good Lord, pepper spray. That gives me
Lania
that gives me PTSD from Lania National Business.
Yeah, we talked about that a while back. We're like,
this classic MO, man.
Good Lord.
It was brilliant though.
So now you kind of came over from Florida. Is that my understanding? Like with Kenny, was it who
So all of the guys that were in Hanky Panky, which then on went to change their name to Revolution Hazy.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
We all lived together here in Florida. There was 4 guys in the band, and then us 4, me and 3 other guys, we were like in the crew. But we were all like brothers, so we all just kind of pooled our money together, moved across the country. Randomly enough, like we thought about it as a joke, and one of the guys in the crew, Bobby, called called Headline management because they saw Pretty Boy Floyd was playing and booked them a show opening for Pretty Boy Floyd before we even had enough money to move there. So to kind of give us the incentive, and just kind of it worked out, and they played a bunch of shows, and then when they disbanded, that's when I had met Stacy, and that's when we kind of formed the Mistakes. He had just left the Zeros, so it's kind of like perfect timing for us to do our own thing.
Who else was in the Mistakes?
Yeah, because it always seemed like you guys all came from that same pool of, I guess, telemarketers and glam punkers.
Yeah, who else was in the Mistakes? It was you and Stacy, and there was who were the other guys?
Well, it's me and Stacy and Sean. If you remember, Sean started the original version when we were first named the band Larry. And then that disbanded pretty quick. Jamie, who played bass in Tough.
Jamie Fonte?
Then he was on the drums. Yeah, so Jamie Fonte was our drummer. I played bass. Stacy played guitar. We had a couple of guitar players, Derek and Skyla. Carrie from Hazy and Dead Girls Corp. He played guitar for a while. Schizo played guitar for a while. And then for drummers, we went from Jamie. We had Stacy Starr, and then Booger played drums for a while.
Who was the other band? Who was the band that Lonnie and Jim was in? They were punk too, but it was like, what was their name?
Rockstar's Kill.
Rockstar's Kill.
Oh, yeah. Rockstar's Kill. And then wasn't it Candy Cane Lane or something like that?
It started as Candy Cane Lane, and then they went to Rockstar's Kill. Kind of like how Hanky Panky went to Revolution Hazy. After a while, you realize like, hey, that name's kind of lame. Let's go with something a little bit more edgy.
Wasn't there like a logo?
Yeah, you do.
Wasn't there like a logo?
Yeah, you drew their logo.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. It was. Yeah. And what was there another? Wasn't there another one that where there's supposed to be like some turds being flushed down the toilet or something? Or was that somebody else? That was probably the little band that I started when I got to Florida. We were called the Unflushables. The Unflushables. That's it. I thought that was a brilliant name. I was just trying to think, how can I draw this? I don't know if I ever finished it or not, but
we never even made it to actually playing a show. Yeah. We did some rehearsals. We did the all-important photo shoot, and that was about as far as it went.
The perfect band. You can never get rid of this band. We're the Unflushables. You'll never get rid of us.
I did a giveaway on our website for the 25th person to like our page. I told them I'd send him a signed plunger, but I don't think we ever made it that far.
Signed plunger from the Dollar Tree.
Yeah.
That's brilliant. Cool.
Now, unfortunately, we heard the news. Your dad recently passed away.
Yeah.
My dad passed away last year, or Eric's stepdad. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about this because my dad played guitar in front of us all the time. That kind of influenced us to for Eric to want to play guitar, taking us to our aunt's house. And was your dad like a huge influence on your musical?
Yes and no. So my parents were both hippies, and my dad played guitar. So I grew up with like, which I wish I still had, with like, Paranoid on vinyl and Alive 2 on vinyl. And my dad was a big Bob Dylan fan and Alice Cooper and stuff. But then my dad was a severe alcoholic and disappeared at like when I was like 14. So from like 14, 15, we had nothing to do with him until I think I was in my mid 20s. So growing up, yes, I got into music probably because of that. But then when he kind of got sober finally and stayed, I mean, he was, I think, 22 or 24 years sober. He passed just before his sober birthday. That's the first thing he did was he bought a guitar and started writing again. And as soon as he started writing again, then when I moved back to Florida, we started actually playing together. We did some acoustic shows, then we put like a full rock band together and probably did 30 or 40 shows with them. So my writing style now and a lot of the way that I do things now was influenced by his songwriting style, because I just wrote punk songs, verse, chorus, and then you're done. Yeah. Where he introduced me into new chord progressions and putting bridges into songs. So playing with him definitely changed my entire outlook on writing songs.
Nice. I like that.
So in fact, I got his Les Paul.
Oh, nice.
And wow. I now have his Koa Oak Tyler as my acoustic.
That's
so.
Cool.
But it's great that you actually got to play on stage with them, that you were that tight knit to be able to.
Yeah, I think I remember seeing some clips where you were performing with your dad and some pictures. Yeah.
And we had when we did the rock band, we had my nephew playing drums. So we had like a family band. And that was my dad's biggest thing, is being able to play on stage. And then two of my daughters that were in the school band, one doing saxophone, one playing trombone, they joined us on stage a couple of times. So it was pretty cool. It was pretty neat.
So you're like the Partridge Family.
I think with me, like my stepdad, like, Glenn's dad, my stepdad, he'd always play guitar in front of us, and he'd always try to get me to play guitar, but I was more interested in just playing with toys and stuff. But it was like, but it did have but I always remember what he would play, the kind of songs he would play for. Like, I remember I always talk about the Crawdad song, like, you always get him to play the song about "We're going down to the Crawdad, honey," whatever that song is, a country song. And,
My first memory was I was probably maybe 8 or 9, and my dad got me a red Flying V guitar for Christmas and a little PV amp. And I couldn't figure out the guitar. It was so frustrating. But I just remember that if I knocked the PV amp, it made this really cool crashing sound.
Now, were you one of those guys that said, "I'm going to take up bass because there's less strings"? Is that the reason why you went to play bass?
No, not really. I mean, Gene Simmons and Nikki Sixx were like my idols. Like, Nikki Sixx was the coolest. Gene Simmons was the coolest as far as I was concerned. Sean, when Sean and we grew up in high school together, and before he switched to drums, he always wanted to be a guitar player. So he had a guitar already. So I'm like, okay, you have the guitar, I'm going to play bass. That's what Nikki Sixx plays. And it just kind of evolved from there, and then it just kind of stuck. And it just seemed like, Stacy played bass in the Zeros, but he wanted to switch to guitar and singing. So it just worked out well to stay on bass and just kind of go that route. I've had a bass for 30 years or so. I'm going to figure out how to play it one day. Yeah. I've mastered 2 out of the 4 strings so far.
I'm the same way. Like, once you're a guitar player, you're just going to play bass like a guitar. You're never going to. Right. That's just how it is.
And so when you come from obviously Florida to Hollywood, is that like a culture shock for you, or is Florida just as fucked up as Hollywood in the 90s? Or
it's a whole different kind of fucked up. We got the Florida man, we got the we got the idiots down here. Yeah. But it was definitely an adjustment. Like, we were like really into the glam things, but for us, glam was like, Vane and Kick Tracy and Shotka Messiah. And then when you get to Hollywood, and it's a different kind of glam, because you had people like, all the guys with the colored hair that we weren't used to seeing. And it was a little bit of an adjustment. But even the music was more like the Heartthrob Mob, which was more like punk influenced, where you had like Big Bang Babies that were glam, and then Alley Cat Scratch that was like the sleaze. But a lot of those guys were doing more of that punk stuff. So that was kind of an adjustment. I liked it because I come from a punk background. But it was definitely an adjustment to get used to, and just the whole scene of just the way, you just walking into the bathroom and seeing people just
Shit on the
doing
floor.
whatever they want to do at the tables and on the floor. Just
If they're not snorting cocaine or having sex. If they're having sex, they're barfing in the toilet. It's like,
exactly.
Something's always going on in the bathroom.
It was a culture shock to see just that a lot of people in California, just the stuff they did, they didn't hide it. It was just out in the open. So that took a little bit. No shame at all.
Going from Florida to Hollywood, did you guys have a plan, or did you guys just live in like how we did? We lived in our car for a few months, and maybe even longer than a few months. But did you guys have to do that?
We all worked. Kelly hooked us up. We all worked these security jobs at night for pumpkin stands, and then we did it for Christmas trees, where we would just kind of stay at the lot all night when they were closed. This guy had like a chain of these stands. So Kelly got us all security jobs working there. But the deal with that is you didn't really get paid until the very end of like the 3-month season.
Oh shit.
So the guy would give us a little bit of money here and there. So when we all got paid, we took that money, we bought a van, we rented a Hertz Penske truck. We all got in the back, and it was one of those ones that had the doors that go from the back of the truck to the cab.
Yeah, okay.
So we put some couches back there, loaded everything up, and just drove to California. We didn't have a place to stay. We stayed in a hotel for the first few nights until we found a house to rent. But then we were lucky enough that there was 8 of us, and we all had money. We moved there with 15 grand, so we were able to kind of get things going and pay like 2 months worth of rent before we
like as we moved there with $100 in our pocket.
Yeah, sounds like fucking luxury to me.
It was, compared to most stories, it definitely wasn't bad. Power in numbers.
Prince of Bel-Air and shit.
Now, did you guys get there in time for the Sunset Strip? Did you get to experience the Sunset Strip like kind of like everyone? Or we got there at the tail end, or about a year before it kind of closed down. But
yeah, we definitely got there at the tail end. It was definitely coming down. The glamour punks were gone and were there, but it was like that's when Heartthrob Mom was playing, Big Bang Babies were coming to their end, Alley Cat Scratch was doing stuff, Queenie Blast Pop was around, you guys were playing, and then like Foxy Rocks would come up and play, and so we kind of got the tail end. We weren't there during the heyday for sure.
Yeah. Did we ever play with the Mistakes? I think we did, right? The Will-O-Wisp and the Mistakes.
I think we did 1 or 2 shows
jam nights
together,
or band where they have different bands on either the Teaser or the Whiskey A Go Go, or we used to do the No Bozo jams. And
Now, were you guys treated with like playing on the Strip and things like that? Were you treated with respect as a band, or do you feel like you had to fight for, because we were always the outsiders, us, Will-O-Wisp, we're always fighting for every fucking scrap we got. But on your guys' end, because you were a mix of punk and glam, you weren't exactly just fit in with the whole glam crowd,
Well, if you think about it, like Glamour Punks pretty much owned that, like glam pop or whatever,
the Glamour
or punk
Punks,
glam or whatever. They owned that scene.
Yeah, they were way cooler than we were.
They were way cooler than pretty much almost every band. It's like
it depends on where we played. So the Teaser loved us. We got treated great when we went to the Teaser. That's why we played there so much. Like because we always got a lot of respect, and the crowd that we drew, they kind of liked the music and the image. Some of the other places that we play, like if we placed it like the Ants High Club or Owl's Bar or something like that, like they didn't like us immediately because we had eyeliner on or wore makeup. So we had to fight with our music to kind of prove that we belong there. Mm-hmm. Some of the glitter glam shows, and no disrespect to anybody that was there, because everyone has their own scene, but all like the Lunchbox girls that would show up, they weren't really into the punk music. They wanted the boppy stuff. They wanted the hot blonde haired singer. They didn't want some, Stacy snotting on him with a 6'6" with his mohawk and Cisco slurring at Cisco breath, kind of drooling all over him. So it was a little bit of a mix. And then Stevie Rochelle was really instrumental in kind of getting us kind of recognized. Mm-hmm. And we actually had Hollywood Records approach us at one point, but they told us that they liked our music, but they didn't like our image. They wanted us to take all the makeup off, and then they would kind of talk. And
that's the singer of Tough.
We were stupid. We were were like, we're not changing. Yeah. Screw you. Whatever. But Stevie, the singer for Tough, he did a lot. He actually financed and produced the whole first CD for us. And he was super helpful to get us where we were. And Stacy was very relentless to get us where we were.
Didn't he end up working with us in a telemarketing room at some point?
Yeah.
He did. I thought he was, because I remember you guys going, oh, that's the guy from Tough.
He did that for a while. And then then he worked for a moving company for a while. And then he launched the Metal Sludge website. And pretty much that and the Tough reunions.
That's what he does now, right?
What he does for a living now.
Stuff, right? Yeah. He's like, they're kind of like the... Yep. What is Metal Sludge exactly? Is it they just spoof on other bands or something? Is that what Metal Sludge is? That their main?
They started out kind of ripping on other bands. Now they're just more like a metal and rock news site, But Stevie's not afraid to post the stuff and his opinions to go along with it,
like
which is what
does.
some people like and some people don't.
I dig it.
I think it's funny.
I think it's funny how no matter what happened, we all ended up in a fucking telemarketing room selling some shit at some point.
Dude, and I did it. And I did it for so long. And like you, Glenn, like, we worked at the same place for a long time as managers and closers. Like, I mean, it went on to make us some good money.
Yeah.
I
can't complain. It was good money. Yeah. Now, obviously, everybody who was in the scene kind of knew of Lonnie. Are there any horror stories or
I think we got
unfortunately,
how many hours do we have on this show?
Yeah, I don't have any horror stories about Lonnie, and I loved Lonnie.
He was the greatest.
He definitely, turned into, and took a wicked turn there towards the end. But when he lived in the warehouse with us for a while. When one of the guys moved out, Lonnie needed a place to stay, and I remember that. The two stories that stand out the most. The first one is one time he wasn't home and his room just reeked. And we have to figure out what the smell is coming from. And he had like a plate of food or something in there, but we noticed he had punched a hole in the drywall in his room because we lived in a warehouse and we built the room, so it just 2x4s and drywall. So we looked in the drywall and he had full cans of beer hidden in the walls of his room. Second thing is one night when he had overdone it. He had got home and he could barely walk, he could barely see, and he passed out in this chair that we had in the living room. And he just passed out, and he had his OCD tics or whatever, and so we messed with him. We put like mustard all over his face. Yeah. One of the girls that was there, or actually I think it was Stacy, had the club for the car, those old school locks, and we locked him in the chair.
Oh yeah.
And he woke up and he had, the mustard all over his shirt from one of his tics, but he woke up, we tied his shoelaces together, and he had to piss. But he couldn't get out of the chair because he was locked in. Yeah. So he started freaking out, yelling. We finally let him out of the club. He stood up. He fell because his shoelaces were tied together, and he literally hopped all the way to the bathroom and ended up pissing himself before he made it all the way there.
Yeah, I know. I remember that. Yeah, he had the OCD. I remember we used to be late for going to work because he'd have to we'd get ready to leave the house, and he had to walk back in, pet our dog for a little bit, and do something to scratch his feet on the ground. We'd almost make it to the door, then you have to go back and do something else. I'm like, come on, Lonnie, we gotta go.
Yeah.
He actually introduced me to the 40 ouncer. I actually, when I think about it, he was the first time I ever drank a 40 ouncer. We were walking home from Chimney Jack, and he stopped and got a couple of King Cobras, and then after that, I started, here's the 40.
Wow.
The beginning of your downfall.
Yeah, the beginning of my downfall. Yeah. If I have one story about Lonnie, and I always wonder if because if Freud doesn't know this, but he committed suicide, and that's how we lost him. And rest in peace, Lonnie. But I always kind of wonder if he thought that I was still mad at him before he passed, because there was that time when he took my identification. And the crazy story was I'm with my ex-wife, we're watching TV, and I get this knock on the door, and it's these two bounty hunters and shit. And they thought I was him because we look alike, and that's why he used my ID a lot, because we had kind of a similar look to it. And the two cops are just sitting there saying, you got to come to us. You missed your court date, and this and that. And we're trying to explain to him, no, I'm not Mike Smith, Eric Fulmer. I even showed him my ID, and even Christine broke out the ID. It's like, yeah, this is not him, And they look at the ID like, I don't know, it sure looks like him to me. It's like, so once we finally got him to believe it, they said the best thing I could do is to take a ride with them down the Rampart. So I'm in the car in the backseat with him going all the way to Rampart, downtown LA and stuff, because he said
that's because all you long hairs look alike.
Yeah, and he said the best thing I could do.
That was before DNA and shit.
What they wanted me to do is to do my fingerprints. That way they can actually prove that I'm not him. That way, because he said if I was to get pulled over by a cop, I would probably be pulled over at gunpoint. That's how bad they wanted this guy. And on the whole way there, I'm talking about my band and talking about, I think the cops were wanting to buy tickets from me for our show. We're talking about Marilyn Manson or something. He's like, I love Marilyn Manson. It's like, yeah, well, I don't really care for him that much, But
you're like, I cut my chest to make out with live octopus on stage.
No, we got to check that out, man. It ended up being really cool.
They let you go.
But I remember Lonnie thought I was pissed at him after that. I said, Lonnie, what'd you miss your court date for? He's like, I guess some kind of heroin charge or something like that, or some kind of drug charge. And, but I always wonder if he knew I forgave him, because I did forgive him. He was like,
yeah.
He was
like the mellowest, crazy person that I could because he was always so mellow. He was always cool with me. I never had any problems with him whatsoever, but he was always quiet. And then all of a sudden you heard something crazy that happened that he did. And you're like, what the fuck?
Have you ever gone to a grocery store with Lonnie? Because one of Lonnie's favorite pastimes would be to stand next to you in the grocery store when you're getting ready to pay your bill. And I'm not talking I'm not talking 7-Eleven. I'm talking like at Ralph's, a full-on grocery store. And he would lean in. He did this with all the time. He would lean in really seriously, just loud enough for the cashier here to go like, so was your mom more mad that you were wearing her underwear or that she caught you in her underwear? And like he would do shit like that all the time. And you see the cashier would be like,
yeah. Yeah, when we first met Lonnie, it was him and his friends that moved from Georgia, and they were like, we were living in that place on Yucca and Cherokee in Hollywood, and this might even be before you guys met him or so, but yeah, he was like living next door, and always hanging out with these strippers, and me and him had sex with the same chick, and because we just became instant friends, and because he would buy everybody food, he gets credit card numbers, and he would use his credit card to order food, and it'd be Chinese food one day, pizza the next, and I guess back then, it was very easy to use someone else's credit card number. You just got to go down there. And if the guy said, "Oh, let me see your credit card," I left it upstairs. Just they would just give you the food anyway, But because all I had to do
Lonnie was very resourceful.
Yeah, he was very resourceful, and it's like, that dude was a character, man.
One of the masterminds of Hollywood in the 90s, man.
And he was a good bass player. All those shenanigans he did, he was actually a pretty good bass player, and. Yep. Like when you saw him on stage, you're like, wow, that's the same guy who was just freaking ordering Chinese food on someone else's credit card.
Yeah.
Exactly, a good bass player.
So with you, Chris, was there any hard transition with alcoholism, since it ran in your family, did it plague you during that time period, or were you able to escape it? And
no, I still drink, but I just drink, more socially now. But there was definitely a time period in LA when everything was so easily accessible, and Stacy and I we would just get a bottle of Cisco to go down the road, So there was definitely a time period, and I've had some times where it definitely got out of hand and became more of an issue than it should have been. But luckily I've been able to kind of get under control and not really have any issues with it now. But I think also, seeing my dad get himself sober, my dad went from living on the streets, like literally living in a bush, to then within 5 years being remarried and owning a motorcycle, a car, and a condo, and having a good job and starting a side business and the whole nine. So he was definitely an inspiration for that as well.
That's cool. That's awesome.
Yeah, because that's why, Eric, you grew up, your dad was an alcoholic, which is pretty much where you got it from. So that's why it escaped me.
Yeah.
Right.
And Eric ended up with the alcohol gene.
Yeah. And I didn't even know, because I didn't know my dad really that well.
Wow.
So you find out afterwards. It's like, well, if I would have known that he was, and I knew it ran in the family, would I have drank? I probably would have still drank. And
I would have. I knew, and I still did it.
Because you don't realize it takes over your life until it's probably too late.
Until it has, yeah.
Yeah.
Some people say, well, I don't have a problem. I don't have a drinking problem. I go, well, you either have a drinking problem or you have a problem when you drink. It's like some people have problems, but every time they drink, they have a problem. There's something happens, something bad happens, and I had it all,
But I'm sure it made life so much more fun in the 90s during that time, right?
Oh, yeah.
You guys get
How about those warehouse parties at gyms? How about that one? Were you at that one where me and Tony was making out for like hours? And it was man.
It's because that whole thing started at our warehouse. We had the first warehouse there with Revolution Hazy, and then they ended up coming and getting one. But yeah, we had some big parties there, and definitely some crazy people show up, and I saw Tony throw himself into a dumpster on more than one occasion.
That was a crazy party that one night.
Tony was always the madman.
I don't know if you were at that one where it was like I was making out with Jim's dog. I was drunk, man. I was getting drunk, and I was just sitting there, like the dog kept licking my face, and next thing you know, I'm on the couch with the dog licking his face, and we're like kind of making out, and then me and Tony, we wanted to do like how Jane's Addiction did, with a shock, at the end of that one video where they kind of start making out. It was like. So we started doing that. We're getting into it. I'm thinking like, am I just gay when I'm drunk or something? Because I don't have any feelings for this guy when I'm sober. and I didn't pop a boner. So Marilyn Manson always said, if you don't pop a boner, then you're not gay.
Right.
So you can suck a guy's dick, but if you don't pop a boner, you're not gay.
So, you gotta have that rule of thumb.
Yeah. Now, did you guys know Marilyn Manson before when you guys lived in Florida?
I didn't know him personally, but Sean and I used to go to a lot of the shows when they were just a club band.
Yeah, okay,
and like at the time, like the guys in Hazy didn't like him because they weren't their style, and they grew to like him. But yeah, Sean and I used to go see him a lot of the local clubs, a lot of local bands. In fact, we used to go see them play with a band called Ambougalard, which was a metal band. They were very Metallica, and they would do shows a lot with Marilyn Manson. Well, the guitar player from Ambougalard was Geordie, who then became Twiggy and became the bass player in Marilyn Manson after the first album. So
I was going to say,
yeah, we used to go see him all the time.
I was going to say it was before Marilyn Manson broke big. I think Trent Reznor kind of boosted his career or whatever. Was he like he was, or do you think he actually did take stuff from LA bands after he got the
I mean, he definitely made it to the extreme, but he was definitely on that path when he was here. In fact, Sean and I got to go to the record plant in Santa Monica when they were recording the first album and got to meet Trent Reznor for like a half a second. But the drummer of the band, we had a friend that was a friend with, so we went and picked him up and we went out and had some drinks and stuff.
That's cool.
But yeah, we used to like going to see them, and they definitely over the years they went from pulling in 12 people to 1,200 people. So Trent definitely helped. I think Trent helped them find their identity, and kind of bring all those guys that had such independent influences, kind of help bring them together into a more cohesive looking and sounding unit, which definitely helped.
Because he had a fanzine, I guess, at that time too. Because I remember Tony said he used to send them our demo, and I don't know if he wrote about us or not in that fanzine, but I don't know. Tony said he saw him at a book signing, and Tony hit him up. He's like, "Yeah, I sent you guys a demo," and he said Marilyn Manson remembered. Yeah, I remember you guys. I got your demo, but I don't know if he ever wrote about it, but.
That's funny. Carrie, when Carrie was in Dead Girls Corp, and Todd, the singer, was the key was Madonna Wayne Gacy's roadie.
Oh, I see.
And I guess they were on tour in like, I don't know, Japan or something. And Todd had come back and told Carrie, who was a guitar player for Hanky Panky, that Marilyn Manson like walked backstage one time and said like, "Listen, I don't none of this hanky panky going on, and I'm not talking about that band from Florida." Right. And Todd's like, "Hey, that guy's in my band now."
Now the real question is, have you ever seen Marilyn Manson assault any woman back then? Any women?
No.
Yeah.
No,
all right, then the case closed. That documentary is bullshit. Fuck you, Evan. Just kidding. No. We're just kidding, Evan.
Eric always causing shit with the ladies.
Yes. Yep.
Controversy. Yeah, I think I saw some of your videos, Chris. How long you do those where you're playing the singing acoustic guitar, or those songs that you did? Are those your songs, or?
I just do. Yeah, those are all my songs. Just in the morning before work, sometimes if I write a song, I just throw it on and record it and throw it out there just for the hell of it, just more so they were documented.
Yeah, I saw that. I was like, okay.
We're doing I'm putting together a memorial concert for my dad on April 22nd. And I'm going to be playing a couple of songs, and another good friend of his, Jeremy's playing. Kelly from Revolution Hazy, him and his nephew are coming down and playing a few songs. So we're all going to do like one original song, and then we're all going to cover one of my dad's songs, kind of in honor for him. So that's going to be.
You ever recording your music?
Service,
do you ever go in a studio within your new music, or the music that you did with your dad?
No, my dad's recorded a lot. I've recorded some stuff with my dad. Recording his songs, and then we've written a couple of songs together.
Any plans to put it out, like digitally at least, or?
He did. He has all of his stuff. He's got if you look at Paul Wilson and Friends SoundClick, he's got like 50-something songs on there.
Cool.
He's got a crap ton on there. Some of the stuff that he wrote, recorded, some stuff that he wrote and had other people record, but they're all songs that he wrote.
It's gotta be cool writing with your dad, huh?
It was, yeah. I don't think I appreciate it as much as I should have, though.
That always seems to be the case. You don't appreciate something until it's no longer available. All right. Well, hey, I want to thank you for coming on, Chris.
I appreciate it.
We really appreciate it. Let history be known that you're our first guest.
Yes.
First of many.
Woo-woo. What do I win?
Yeah. You win the
jack shit.
You get to do the Death Nut challenge with me.
I didn't want to do nothing with your nuts. I can guarantee you that.
Nothing with my nuts. Damn it.
He's already got him out.
I got the hot batch.
ready to
These
eat.
nuts.
Yeah.
Well, it was awesome talking to you guys.
Yeah, man,
I mean,
totally.
we've been friends for so damn long, and we talk virtually all the time, but to actually sit and have a conversation.
Yeah, I
with
think
you
it's
guys
like the first time
cool.
like actually face to face. Been on Facebook and everything for years, and
Yeah, I've been on Facebook for years, but I don't go on there.
No, you get unless you're promoting something.
Yeah.
Glenn doesn't go
Yeah.
near. You're like, I'm like,
I don't fucking give a
always-
shit.
like, oh look, I am still friends with Glenn. Oh look, Glenn's got a new podcast.
I'm always,
post today.
I'm always complaining, man. Nobody gives me any likes, man. I share all this and
That's the
nobody
way
gives
it
me any
works,
likes.
man.
It's like, Facebook is
Hey,
dead.
every time I see your
I
crap,
know,
I always give you
I think it's
something.
you and maybe 3 other people. I'm like, come on, man. But that humbles me.
I downloaded your songs. I write reviews
Yes.
for you on Amazon
Yeah.
for all your music,
Yeah.
which I love the stuff you're doing.
Thank you so much. Yeah,
I really dig it.
Thank you.
It's definitely good. It's got a cool direction. I like a lot of the stuff you did too. Before Death Cryptopia, when you were doing your own stuff with and I can't remember the name of the song, but the song that you did, that real moody kind of love song you did for your girl.
Maybe.
Yes, love that song. So good. And then your son's stuff he's pretty good.
Yeah, he's well, we just moved to Vegas and he's still in Portland, Oregon. So
Okay.
Same thing with Eric. Now Eric can't record either.
I mean, I can record, but I gotta use that sound trap.
So that way I can record him.
Like, you gotta find a studio, or that's what's been slowing me up and putting some new stuff out.
Yeah, because I was the one producing all their shit, and I'm the one with the good equipment.
Yeah.
That's because you're the one that didn't spend all your money on drugs and booze when you were back in the day. He wouldn't even buy a stool. He just sat on the damn floor with his keyboard.
Right.
That's how cheap I was. I didn't even know there were keyboard stands existed at that time. I was like, you can buy a keyboard stand?
Wasn't that keyboard from like Radio Shack too? Wasn't like a Radio Shack keyboard? Realistic. He was like Schroeder.
As long as you didn't put it on a trash can, you were safe.
He was the gothic Schroeder from Charlie Brown.
Yeah.
100%.
Oh, very cool, guys.
Thanks,
I appreciate it. You guys enjoy the rest of your show, and I'll keep watching and listening.
All right. Thank you.
All right,
That's
man.
Chris Wilson.
All right, man.